This video is going to talk about opposite integers. So let's say, we're going to ignore these directions up here. We're going to do our own directions. Let's say that we are both standing at point 0 on a number line. And the number line extends in both directions. We're both standing there. Let's say I take 5 steps forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you do the exact opposite of me. You take 5 steps backwards. If I take 5 steps forward, I'm going to be at the number 5. Where are you going to be? That's right, you're going to be at -5. Because remember, the numbers go -1, -2, -3, and we can't really fit -4 because that's the prettiest number line you've ever seen. So the new point would be -5. Let's say we're both standing at 0 and I take 2 steps forward and you do the exact same. Or let's say you're standing in front of a mirror and you take 2 steps away from the mirror, you look back and your mirror image has taken 2 steps in the mirror world direction or in the negative direction. Let's say you go to 0 and I go to 0 because we don't need 6 feet distance in a theoretical situation, and you take 3 steps backwards and I take 3 steps backwards. You're at -3 because you've gone 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to be at +3. So the opposite of -3 is +3. What's the opposite of -4? +4. 2 integers are called opposite integers when they're the same distance from 0, but in opposite directions. So what we were talking about with walking down the number line, or imagining being in the looking in a mirror, was figuring out the opposites. What's the opposite of 5? -5. What's the opposite of -3? +3. So, what's the same about how we write opposite integers? Well, they both have the same digit on them. They both have the number 3, even though these are both opposites. What's different about how we write them is that -3 has a negative sign, +3 either has nothing or a positive sign, which looks like that. Go ahead, write down the opposite integers. Pause the video if you need to. Welcome back. The opposite of 8 is -8. The opposite of 10 is -10. The opposite of -9 is +9. I'm going to put the positive sign, even though I don't need it, just so I know that it should be there. What's the opposite of -7? +7. What's the opposite of 23,809? -23,809. So, in the still water, a bird's reflection looks as far below the surface of the water as the bird is above the surface of the water. Let's pretend 0 is the surface of the water. If the bird is 50 feet above the surface, then it would look like the reflection is -50 feet, or 50 feet below the surface. If the bird is 85 feet above the surface of the water, then the reflection would appear to be -85 feet, or 85 feet below the surface of the water. 300, -300, 420, -420. How far below the bird does its reflection appear to be in each of these cases? Well, to talk about that, let's go ahead and let's take that first example of 50. Ooh, look at that water, pretty water. Let's say the bird is 50 feet above the water. That means the reflection of the bird would be 50 feet below the water. When we take this 50 feet and this 50 feet and make them into one line, that would appear that the reflection is 100 feet away because you'd include the top and the bottom. Fun fact. On number lines, yeah, we're going to keep going. By looking at a number line, how can you tell if one integer is greater than the other? Well, we kind of talked about this yesterday, but basically, the numbers go bigger in a positive direction going away from 0, and they get smaller going away from 0 on the negative end. So you can tell if one integer is greater than the other by how far to the right it is. The more to the right it is on the number line, the more correct it is. The more correct it is, the bigger it is. The more it is to the left of the number line, the smaller it is. Remember that the opposite of 0 is just 0. 0 is very special. It's the only number that is its own opposite. 0 doesn't really have an opposite. Opposite integers are defined by how far they are away from 0. 0 is 0 feet away from 0, so it gets to be special. So, go ahead and use the number line to copy and complete the sentences. 3 is to the blank of 4, so 3 is what then 4? So if we look at the number 3 and we look at the number 4, 3 is to the left of 4. So 3 is smaller than 4. Negative 3 is to the right of negative 4. So negative 3 is larger. That says larger than negative 4. So basically, anything that's to the right is bigger, anything that's to the left is smaller. So go ahead and complete this on your own. Pause the video. We'll talk about it when you come back. Welcome back. So we still have this number line. You could go back to it. You could reuse it again. 5 is to the right of 2. So negative 5. Ooh, they're changing things up here. 5 is to the right of 2. So negative 5, the opposite of that, that's going to be different. Negative 5 is actually smaller than negative 2. 2 is to the right of 0. So negative 2, its opposite, is going to be smaller than 0. Negative 1 is to the left of negative 3, which means that 1 is going to be smaller than 3. Why does that not seem right? 5 is to the right. You know why that doesn't seem right? Because negative 1 and negative 3, I forgot my own rule. It's a late night. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 1 is actually to the right of negative 3. So 1 is smaller than negative 3. Sometimes, if you get confused, putting those visuals can help. Just kind of get a look-see. Or, remembering your right and left. That's probably also important. 10 is higher than 3. So because 10 is higher than 3, negative 10 is lower than negative 3 because it's the opposite. So if it's higher on the positive end, it's going to be lower on the negative end. Things just go backwards. They want us to write the symbols in the box. Don't forget the greater than, less than signs, where we talk about either Pac-Man or the mouth. It wants to eat the bigger side, or it's going to the bigger side of the less than, greater than sign goes to the bigger number. The smaller side goes to the smaller number. Or you can also remember that the less than sign and the greater than sign are on the number lines. And the less than sign is for the smaller, the greater than sign is for the larger. Or you can remember the less than sign, if you turn it, makes the letter L. How fun. So 4, 7. Well, 7 is bigger than 4. So that means that -4 has to be bigger than -7 because of the way that the number line works. 8 is bigger than 6. So -8, -6. Well, I'd rather lose $6 than lose $8. 13 and 9, I know which one's bigger there. -13, -9. I'd be deeper underwater if I'm 13 feet underwater. Look at how when we change the sign, when we change the negative positive sign, the greater than less than sign also reverses. Ooh, there's bonus. Go ahead and try that bonus. Did you try it yet? Okay, just checking. Did you notice that they also changed where the numbers are so that you don't actually have to change the sign? Because they also changed, if you look back here, they kept the orders the same. 4 came first. The second number came second. Over here, they changed things up by putting the first number last and the second number first. So that one, the sign won't change because of the way they place the numbers. Which number is closer to 0? Well, which number is closer to 0? 3 or 4? 3 is closer to 0. Go ahead, take a minute to figure this out, and we'll talk about it when you come back. Welcome back. 3 or -4. 3 is 3 steps away from 0. -4 is 4 steps away from 0. So 3 is still closer to 0. -3 or -4? Well, -3 is 3 steps away from 0. 4 is 4 steps away from 0. So even though the directions keep changing, it's still looking at the number of steps. -3 is closer to 0. Anything with a 3 is going to be closer to 0 than 4 is. The smaller numbers are going to be closer to 0. So the same thing here. All of these 1s, it's always going to be 1 versus 5. And the 1s are closer to 0. How can you tell which number is closer to 0? Not by looking at the sign, just by looking at the digit. The smaller the digit, the closer it is to 0. The larger the digit, if I tried to put 1,000,000 on here, I would have to go way off screen to make sure that I could fit it on there. It's going to be much further from 0. And the same thing with -100 would be going way on that side. Go ahead and figure out which number is closer to 0. Pause the video, and then we'll come back. Welcome back. 2 is closer to 0. -2 is closer to 0. Look, all these 2's are closer to 0. What did you get for the bonus? -3,000 or +8,000? 3,000, whether it's positive or negative, 3,000 steps away from 0 is less than 8,000 steps away from 0. So we want to find an integer that's halfway between -3 and 5 on the number line. So we have -3 and 5, or +5 on the number line. We want to find the integer that's halfway through. So what I would normally do is have you pick up 2 fingers and put them both on -3 and 5 and move them in each time. That doesn't happen anymore right now because I can't see what you're doing and you can't see my actual fingers on the screen. So if we start off at each of these numbers and we take 1 step in, that's 1 step. Take another step in, 2 steps, another step in, 3 steps, and you can see that the middle, the halfway point between -3 and 5 is going to be 1. That's the midpoint. So they want you to go ahead and use a number line and find the integer halfway between the 2 given integers. You're going to do that on a number line. Go ahead, pause the video. We'll talk about it when you come back. Welcome back. So you would have drawn lots of number lines here for right now. -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. I'm not going to put all the numbers, they won't all fit. So to figure out what's the halfway point, 1 in, 1 in, 1 in, 1 in, 1 in, 1 in. What is 1 step away from 0 in the negative direction? -1. And you would do the same thing for this one. -3, -2, -1, 0, +1. Let's take our step in, step in, step in, step in. We have our midpoint there, and our midpoint is -1. -2 and 6, -2, -1, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These would all be even in a perfect world. Step in, 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 step in. And we can see that our midpoint is 0, 1. Our midpoint is +2. And then for our last one, -6 and -2. This one's actually going to be interesting. -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0. I've always put 0 on the number lines. I may as well keep that up. So to step in, step in, step in, step in, our midpoint is going to be 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. They want you to go ahead and do the same thing again, but now with these numbers. Look for a pattern in the answer. Go ahead, try this on your own, and we'll talk about it when you come back. Welcome back. Let's go ahead and take a look here between -3 and +3. So -3, -2, -1, 0. 1, 2, 3. Step in, step in, step in, step in, step in, step. Oh, look. Our midpoint's at 0. How nice. I don't have to write a number. Let's do the let's do the same thing with -4 and +4. Long number line, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go ahead and let's start at the outside. Step in, step in, step in, step in, step in, step in, step in. Ooh, look, another convenient midpoint. How cool. Let's do -1 and +1. -1, 0, 1. Well, that one's going to be pretty easy. Look, another midpoint of 0. And if I were to do the -7 and the +7, you would see the same thing. And you would see the same thing because it's 7 steps this way or 7 steps that way. It's still going to end up being the same amount of steps to get to 0. 0 is halfway between 3 and what other number? 0 is halfway between 3 and +3. Go ahead and pause that video, give these a shot, and we'll talk about it when you come back. Welcome back. 0 is halfway between -8 and 8. -6 and 6. -9 and 9. 0 is the same distance away from the opposite number. It's just going in a different direction. Oh my gosh, there's a bonus. Don't even pause, just figure it out. There you go. -892 and 892. The temperature of a freezer for storing and freezing food should be somewhere between -10 degrees Fahrenheit and 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Which of these temperatures are acceptable for a freezer? Which of these temperatures are between -10 and 0 degrees Fahrenheit? Is -7 in there? Let's go ahead and make a nice little number line here. 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -squish, -squishier, negative. Isn't that a perfectly spaced number line that we're doing? It's fantastic. But anyways, between 0 and -10, -7 is in there. It's hidden in there, but it's there. Is positive 3 there? No, positive 3 is going to be over there. Positive 3 is not. Negative 7 is. What about negative 12? Negative 12 is way over this way. That's going to be a no. Negative 1? Yeah, that's between negative 10 and 0. I'm going to go ahead and let you try these on your own. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have. Have a wonderful rest of the day.